welcome to Inside Building and Construction with ZD Law. This is a program that's going to focus on the built environment, on infrastructure, on design, and on how critically important it is to all of us. My name is Michael De Chiara.
And I'm Michael Zetlin. And Michael and I are the founding partners of Zetlin De Chiara, a firm that has been representing the design, construction, and real estate industries for the last 2 decades. Through our involvement in this industry, we have met some of the key players that have helped literally build this world. And we're glad as part of this series to share them with you. We have some fabulous guests that can help discuss with us great design and innovation and getting projects completed, even here in the state.
And we're very lucky for our inaugural program to have the wonderful Richard Meyer, one of the world's great architects, as one of our guests, and the other guest is a friend of the firm's, Dick Anderson. Dick is the head of the New York Building Congress. It's an umbrella organization that advocates for design, construction, and real estate in the New York area, and literally no major project happens without input from the Building Congress in this region of the country. And Dick Anderson has had major input into billions and billions of dollars of construction over the last decade.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Richard Meyer and Dick Anderson.
Well, gentlemen, welcome and thank you very much for joining us on the maiden voyage of our program. And I think what we'd like to highlight with the both of you is public projects, infrastructure, getting them built, and great design. So I'd like to first turn to Richard and ask you, in your view, how does design shape a culture or a society?
For me, design is paramount in everything that we as architects do and that we as citizens respect. When you travel and go to a place where you haven't been before, what's the first thing you do? You go and visit the important buildings that are there, whether they're buildings of the 15th century, 16th century, 19th century, 20th century, or 21st century. That's what you're interested in seeing. And that's what you learn. That's how you learn about the culture of the place that you're visiting. And you come back with a different point of view about that place because of what you see there. I've had the opportunity to work in a number of places, both here and abroad. Here, the federal government had an enlightened program in building courthouses around the country. It was a magnificent program, and they strove for excellence in design. And that was a relatively short-lived program, unfortunately, but it takes a political will in order to change the built environment on a public level. And without leadership, without public leadership, design goes by the wayside. So we really have to educate and turn to our political leaders and make them aware of what quality architecture, what quality building means for our society.
Dick, let me pick up on that. So now from the planning side, you've been involved in this industry for a very long time. When do you see the public commitment towards great architecture?
Well, right now we have terrific competition for public dollars and public attention. In past generations, we were in a different situation. In the 1930s, the social programs were just beginning, and so a lot of money went into good design and public construction, and the results were very visible. We're still benefiting from a lot of that, but now people are constantly being asked to fund many different things. So we need to, as Richard Meyer said, get political leadership. We need more people like the late Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, people who are advocates for good design, quality building, and we need to convince the general public that this is a good investment.
Right. Turning back to Richard Meyer. Richard, you look at something like the Arch in St. Louis, or look at the Brooklyn Bridge here in New York. These become icons. I mean, people come from all over the world to walk on the Brooklyn Bridge, and people love the aesthetic. People, perhaps not all around the world, but many people flock to the Arch in St. Louis. Eero Saarinen did a fabulous job with that. And I guess the question is, should infrastructure be focused on the purely functional, or isn't there something greater than that? Should infrastructure always have as a component significant design?
I think infrastructure, like architecture, has first, of course, to satisfy the functional requirements. That's a given. Every project is going to be functionally okay, otherwise it's not going to happen. But it has to go beyond that. It has to have an aesthetic quality that takes it beyond just the functional aspect of the infrastructure in this case, and it has to say something about what it can be and what it's going to mean 20, 30, 50, 100 years after it's built. And for that, I think you need an attitude and a public awareness, because the public can change the political point of view. And the public awareness, I think, will enable these kinds of projects to happen. I think, unfortunately, we're in a different economic climate today, and those kinds of projects are very difficult to see happen. Well, but hopefully that will change.
Well, don't you think that great design for infrastructure, whether it's a bridge or right here in Queens, or perhaps it's Brooklyn, the borderline there is fairly close, but you have the most mundane thing you can imagine, a solid waste processing plant. And it is magnificent. You have these amazing stainless steel orbs that rise like 10 stories, and there are 3 or 4 of them. It was designed by a prominent architectural firm, but great design elevates everything and everybody. Would you agree with that?
I certainly would.
Well, don't you see that in Dick? Something like the Calatrava station downtown. You see these projects, and when they're built, you walk by those projects, they're inspirational.
And it sets a tone for a city, for a civilization. And we need inspiration right now, because what really drives public policy? Right now, to get a lot of infrastructure built, we need a crisis. Things have to fall down. Things have to be in a state of such disrepair that we have no choice but to rebuild. You don't want to be in that situation. That's not, to use your example before, what China is doing. China is investing its resources for the future, and you can see they are very calculating in what they're doing, and they're going to get something out of it in the long run, which will be very tangible. We did that in the past. Through great effort, the state of New York built the Erie Canal. The Erie Canal took, I think, 17 years, enormous amount of money and resources and manpower, and the results were astounding for what it did for New York.
Well,
and
let's
for
not
New York
forget
State.
the Panama Canal. Let's not forget the rail systems, right? I mean, Dick, from your perspective, right, in terms of the influence that great design can have on getting the public support for infrastructure projects and to excite the public, is that something that needs to be better exploited?
I think so, and the question is how you go about it. Do you do it by getting champions like Senator Moynihan, who went out of his way to encourage and fund great design? Do you do it by example? so people will want to emulate really quality design, quality buildings? Do you do it by encouraging the editorial writers, the business community? It's probably all of the above, but right now we're not doing enough of what's necessary to encourage and build quality design.
I think it's even worse than that, Dick, and we have to figure out the solution. One of the things I was reading, I think the ASC graded all of our infrastructure at like a D level. I think our highest grade was a C or a C plus when you looked at dams and you look at energy grids, you look at bridges, you look at tunnels. They're looking at, I think, 1.6 trillion over 5 years just to maintain our infrastructure. It seems to me one of the solutions might be, it's getting people like Richard Meyer to talk about the importance of great design, coupling that perhaps with letting the public know that this actually is something that generates revenue. I mean, is that maybe a message to deliver?
Over the last 10 or 15 years, we've been working on a bridge over a river in Alessandria, Italy. And it began because the existing bridge was very fragile. So the new bridge is not just a bridge, it's also a public plaza. It's a place where people can meet. The cars move, but there's public space involved in it as well. So it's in this case, sort of extending sort of the simple functional requirements of bridging the river and making that into a piazza, a center of activity in the city. And it happens because there's a political will. The mayor wanted it to happen. That mayor lost office. The next mayor wasn't so interested. The third mayor came back and revived it. The fourth mayor is going to see that it's built. But it's part of a continuum, and the continuum is the political will to make something happen for the public good.
But
let me comment on that, because Mike Bloomberg, as mayor of New York, has invested far more in infrastructure through the New York City capital budget than any of his predecessors. It's over $75 billion just in the 10 years that he's been mayor. And that was a conscious decision. He said, I'm going to build a school system, I'm going to rebuild housing, I'm going to build transportation facilities, I'm going to build environmental facilities, and he went and did that. And that was one person. And he had the cooperation of course, of his administration and the city council. But this was something he said he would do when he ran for mayor, and he's followed through. So, so that kind of will and that kind of leadership is what you need.
Right, Dick. But and actually, this is for both Richard and for Dick. You know, you raised the point that you were commissioned, and I've seen the renderings to design a spectacular bridge, which could be mundane or spectacular. Now it's in Italy. Italy has a long tradition of great design and great bridges. And perhaps I have some sort of ethnic pride, 2 generations removed, but some ethnic pride in that happening. The question is, the Italians, who have, what, 1/10 our economy, 1/20 our economy, they have infrastructure needs, and they turn to one of our great architects, and one of the world's great architects, to design it. When is the last time, for a major infrastructure project, be it a tunnel, be it a bridge, we have the solid waste example in Brooklyn, Queens, that American government says, you know what, we're going to build something fairly mundane, but we're going to make it wonderful.
It's how money flows in the United States versus other societies. How much money is spent on consumption? How much money is spent on material things that are picked up by people and thrown away?
See,
I
Dick,
mean, we have a different society than other societies, and it comes down to societal values.
Sure, it's immediate consumption and the benefit of immediate consumption. But then, on the political will side, I read an article this morning. So Cuomo was on the radio program over the weekend, and he's talking about possibly using some union dollars for supporting, in a public-private sort of way, the reconstruction of the Tappan Zee Bridge. So now he gets hammered, right, slammed with a threatened lawsuit. And they're talking now, you see the article in your headlines, Union Z Bridge. Yeah, for how difficult is it for these politicians? And are they willing to really stand up to that type of pressure when they'll be attacked from every angle?
Well, and to think outside the box, right? But I would think, and then I think we're going to unfortunately have to wrap up this wonderful conversation, but I would think that politicians, architects, planners, we all have to learn how to think outside the box to make things happen. I would throw out to both Richard and to Dick, is there any final comments that you would like to share with the audience regarding the importance of great design and infrastructure? Richard?
Well, as a designer, how can I say that it's not important?
Well, I think it's critical, and I'm not a designer.
But I think that you see the difference. You see, no matter what the project is, if it's well designed, if it's meaningful in terms of its place, if it has an uplifting quality, people react to that. They react to it in a very positive way. And I think that, our society should demand the quality that it deserves. Our generation needs to raise its standards in a way so that future generations can say, look what happened during the 21st century. Isn't that great? We should carry on what they began.
Yeah, keep telling that story, and we will prevail. And we go through cycles of different values in society and different things that we hold dear. And right now, building infrastructure is not as high on that scale as it's been in the past. But with good examples and keeping telling that story, we will be we'll be in the infrastructure game much more than we are now.
Well, hopefully that will be the case. On that note, let me thank Richard Meyer, Dick Anderson for our guests, our audience. Thank you for joining us tonight. Again, we hope this is the first of many series to come. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.